Hey, Lyndon.
Hey Tori, how are you this week?
Good. Doing pretty well. Thought we'd just start by introducing ourselves. I'm Tori Crone. I'm the owner of Proactive Therapy, which is a psychotherapy outpatient practice in Chicago.
And I'm Lyndon Lawson, and I am a clinician at Proactive Therapy.
Yeah, so we're bringing you guys this series of videos just to talk about everything that's going on during this time of sheltering in place and being at home a lot. So tell me what your clients have mostly been struggling with this week, Lyndon.
I find that most of my clients at this stage, now that we've kind of been doing this a while, are starting to feel like every day is the same. There's a lot of
Yeah.
monotony going on. It starts to feel a little bit like Groundhog Day. Are you finding that at all?
Totally. Yeah. People are describing that a lot. How are you spending your time?
It took a little figuring out at first because a lot of the things that I would normally do just weren't available to me.
Mhm.
But I've started playing around and found some new things, taking very socially distant walks with friends on other sides of the street to kind of fulfill
Uh-huh.
those extrovert needs.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot into paint by numbers, which has actually been really fun. Um,
Cool.
and different online dance classes. I really like this dance class
Ooh,
work, WERQ. It's like a hip hop kind of version of Zumba,
so
which has been really
fun.
fun.
Yeah, I can see you doing that.
What have you found?
Um, I think I've been mostly doing things that I already enjoyed doing, but just doing them a little bit more or in a different way. So I already love cooking. I love baking,
Mhm.
but I've just been kind of thinking of more elaborate recipes or looking up new chefs that I can follow. Um, I made cornbread yesterday with the chili, and sometimes I don't always have time to make all the sides with. And I kind of take shortcuts when I'm cooking, and so now I'm doing it the longer way. And then taking photos. So, I've got my 2-year-old at home, and I spend more time when we go for walks. I take pictures of him or of flowers or trees that I'm seeing, and just kind of spend more time in nature doing those types of things.
That sounds awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been nice to kind of get connected with hobbies that I've maybe had before, but didn't
Uh-huh.
have as much time to do when I was running around all the time.
Yes.
It took a minute to kind of figure out what those were going to be for me, though. At first, when the
Yeah.
quarantine hit, I had the sense of, what do I do when I'm not
Right.
hanging out with friends all
Right. Right.
weekend? What is that going to look like? And I feel like I had to kind of stumble my way through it at first. I don't know if you had that
Yeah.
experience at all.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And, obviously it's sort of coming from a place of privilege to be able to feel bored during this time. But it's
Absolutely.
also happening for a lot of our clients. I'd say a third of the clients that I see have been furloughed during this time. So, a lot of people it's very unexpected. And suddenly they're left with, I'm not even working now. And I have all this time on my hands. And then I can't do the things that I would normally do, like go to a concert or brunch or go to museums where, maybe if somebody had 2 months of downtime away from work, other outside of this experience, then they would feel like they had a lot to do. But when we're at home most of the time, it's really a different experience.
It's especially hard too because when you're going through something like furlough or a layoff and you don't have that structure during the day, it leaves your mind all of this time to just kind of wander into worry, into kind of dark places. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's especially difficult if you've got, job fears as well as a lot of unstructured time to fill.
Yeah, yeah. So some of my clients have been saying things like, I don't have hobbies. I'm usually really busy, but I don't have things that I know that I enjoy. What what should we do? What do we do about this, Lyndon?
I think that's such a good point. And I'm finding the same thing that I have a lot of clients who are really driven to work. They would oftentimes fill extra time with work, but they just don't have the stamina to do that anymore. I mean, our vulnerability factors are through the roof, and most of us can't work to the same degree that we were before.
Mm-hmm.
And even on their downtime, I hear clients saying, yeah, I would go to festivals, I would go to brunch, I would go to the movies, all of these things that aren't
Mm-hmm.
available to us. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's a massive shift. I mean, you can even hear, you can hear the activity in that, right? I work all day, I go out, I go to brunch, I go to the gym. There's
Yeah,
this kind of momentum that people were experiencing. And then it's almost
right.
as if the world has kind of ground to a halt. and people are feeling that kind of that stuckness of where do I go from here.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that I want to kind of bring up maybe as a tool for today is this
Sure.
distinction, speaking about this momentum versus feeling stopped. And, you know, there's a concept in mindfulness through the work of Kabat-Zinn or in DBT, where we distinguish doing mind from being mind.
Yeah.
The doing mind is ambitious. It is goal oriented. We're thinking, we're planning, we're achieving. It's where we spend a lot of our time here in the West. And then being mind is distinct. It is open, it's curious, it's present, it's this kind of nothing to do state of mind. And the concept is in mindfulness is that there has to be a blend of both. We need time to be in doing mind, and we need time to be in being mind to feel balanced. And spending some time in being mind is helpful. It's a helpful reset for us so that when we go back to doing, the doing that comes out of being is more effective.
Yeah. Yeah. And doing mind is often involves thinking. It's thinking about the things, the discrepancy between where we are and where we want to be. It involves a lot of planning. And we can be very caught up in our thoughts and kind of thinking about the future. And in that process, we can often be detached from the present moment. So like you said, we need to plan. We need to be able to think, okay, I want breakfast this morning. How am I going to get to that place? So that's a really useful skill. And I think a lot of us have lost sight of being mind and just being present and being curious and seeing what shows up.
It's not a very Western concept, is it? If you think about it, just being and the value in being. I think that the culture that we're part of is very much doing and accomplishing, and that's what we're praised for. And that's what, right, kind of is inherent in our culture. And so it's different to kind of introduce this idea of being mind. You know, when I'm teaching it to clients, oftentimes I'd like this metaphor of a math problem versus a sunset. That when we're in doing mind, it's kind of like a math problem. We're thinking, we're planning, we're trying to get to a solution. It's really goal oriented. And being mind is much more like looking at a sunset. You know, we're just there, we're appreciating it, we're open, we're curious, we're present. There's nothing to solve or accomplish. It's just this moment of pure connection, appreciation, kind of oneness with the moment.
I love that so much.
Yeah,
It's
totally. And you can see if you watch a sunset, how you get better at doing the math problem once you've had that resting.
That's true too. So maybe everybody could kind of think of a time when they're done watching this video, of a time that they were watching a sunset with no agenda, just full appreciation, and really remember what that's like. I have one coming to mind right now when I was in Hawaii and we came, got to the top of the mountain right at the time of the sunset. And so you're just taking it in. You're not judging it. You're not thinking what's next. And so that's really a great metaphor for how we can show up with being mind. I think the other thing to keep in mind is that we're so programmed to be doing that as soon as we get this little itch, this little restlessness, or any kind of boredom sets in, we grab our phones. It's such an impulse. Or we get on the computer, we scroll through something, that we almost don't allow for those pauses in time that might be really useful in terms of helping us to be more creative, and helping us to just enjoy the moment. So it might be wise for people to notice the next time they have that little itch, or the next time they grab for their phone automatically, and just practice putting it down. See what happens if you give yourself a little bit of a pause, a little bit of space, with absolutely no agenda.
Yes, I love that idea of bringing some awareness to these moments. And I like what we're talking about too, this idea that there's value in being, right? So a lot of times when I start to talk to my clients about how they might want to fill their time, I immediately hear a lot of these judgments, right? What's the point, right? Why paint if I'm not going to be an artist? Why walk if there's nowhere to walk to, right? So you can almost hear that judgment that comes from, I'm not accomplishing anything. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And, maybe they won't know until they try it too, that, what does it feel like when you actually paint without there being an agenda of being the best at it or becoming a professional or selling your paintings, without some kind of secondary gain? Like, what is it like to just pick up the paintbrush and experience that process. Maybe put on some music and see if you enjoy it.
Absolutely. And it may be a generational component too, that there's mixed data, but millennials do have a reputation for being kind of work martyrs and having side hustles. And so this could be an experience to connect with something different. And I totally agree with you, Tori, that oftentimes we can't really grasp these kind of mindfulness concepts until we try it and we notice it. We can talk about it all day and I can explain it in 20 different ways, but until you've actually tried it, you don't really fully grasp that moment of connection and awe and curiosity that can come from actually doing the thing.
Yeah, totally. So what if people don't have a place to start? What would you suggest? Like, I have no idea what I enjoy doing.
I hear that a lot too, because the things that I enjoy are no longer here. So it's interesting. Oftentimes when I talk to people about this, the mindset is they kind of go through ideas and it's almost just waiting for inspiration or an epiphany to strike, waiting for this idea to kind of fall out of the sky about what they feel inspired to do or called to do. And it doesn't really work like that. When I'm describing to clients kind of what the process is of figuring out what we enjoy doing or how we want to spend our time, the process is a lot more like trying hats on for size, right? We have to kind of just pick something, be it from a list of activities on Google or things that we've heard about that maybe we've had a small interest in. And we have to try it on for size and just kind of notice. How did that go? How did I feel? Was there any joy that showed up? Or did I kind of fall into presence with this? Is this something I might want to continue? We can't really know what fits until we've tried it on.
Right. And I love what you said about it not just being, it could be joy that you feel, and maybe it's just being present. And maybe that's enough, and kind of having a break from all the doing. As a sort of reset. So it doesn't always have to be that we have this certain feeling. It might feel really different actually from when you're accomplishing things. It might not be as satisfying in that regard, and that's not a bad thing.
Absolutely. And it is odd if we haven't spent a lot of time being to step into it. We oftentimes say in behavior therapy that action precedes motivation. We sometimes have to do the thing and have the experience, and then we feel more motivated to continue. So we can't just wait around for the idea to strike or the mood to strike. It's never going to happen. I think it comes more from a commitment to trying something and noticing and letting that data kind of guide our next choice about how we want to spend our time.
Yeah.
How about you, Tori? Have you found any other ways besides maybe a list on the internet to start to brainstorm different things that you might want to experiment with?
Yeah. So one thing might try doing is thinking about what you really enjoyed doing as a little kid. Was it you like to sew things for your dolls, or help your mom bake a cookie, or any of those things you might still enjoy as an adult. Is there anything you can think of from when you were a kid that you really loved doing, Lyndon?
Absolutely. And it's funny, as soon as you say this, it's a lot of the things that I've been doing recently, which weren't previously on my weekend itinerary. I used to craft with my mom. And so painting has come back. I used to take dance classes, and now I'm kind of doing online videos. And, I didn't really click until you actually said that about that some of the things that I've tried on and that I've gravitated towards were things that I used to do as a kid that maybe fell away in adulthood, and I've been able to reconnect with. How about you? What was a 5-year-old Tori kind of doing for fun on the weekend?
5-year-old Tori loved to dance. I had this little dance studio in my parents' home that I made up. So I think, and that's something I haven't taken up again lately, but I'd love to do that. You've kind of inspired me to find a YouTube video or something, just put on some music. And then I think I get the opportunity to be a little kid a lot of times with my toddler. And so I am doing those really fun things. I'm blowing bubbles and I'm chasing him around the backyard and doing chalk. And so sometimes just kind of pretending you're a little kid again can be a process of noticing that it's totally being mind. You're so in the present when you're being a little kid or you're with a little kid. And so that's another thing to think about, is just if you're having trouble tapping into that, either, hang out with a little kid once this all ends, or just kind of remember what it was like to be a little kid and try out some of those things that you really enjoyed.
I love that example of being mind, because I can think
Mm-hmm.
of, when I see little kids, they're just here now and they're fascinated, right? They can play with like
Yeah.
a door handle for 30 minutes, just kind of being
So,
curious
yeah.
and open with kind of this, we
Yeah.
call it in mindfulness beginner's mind. So this
Uh-huh.
concept of seeing something for the first time, because
Mm-hmm.
toddlers are seeing something for the first time. But even
Right.
us as adults,
Right.
we can bring this beginner's mind of, can I paint, and can I let go of judgments about this activity or expectations,
Mm-hmm.
and really enter into this activity as if it's the first time I'm doing this. And that beginner's mind helps us cultivate that openness and that
Right.
curiosity.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
My toddler takes about 30 minutes to walk down one block, literally. And, there's times when I have to say, we've got to get home, we've got to eat lunch, let's go. But a lot of the time, I just really push myself to just let him be and
Mhm.
walk at his pace, because he is looking at every blade of grass and he's looking at each bird, and every truck that goes by, we have to stop and look. And it's a beautiful way of being. And it's something that we totally lose sight of as adults. But
It is.
he helps me really tap into it. So as much as possible, whenever it's possible, I really just slow down and practice being really present with him. And
I love that. And contrasting that even with kind of some of the comments I've heard from my clients, right? That they're kind of on this walk and their minds are thinking about, what's the point? I'm not getting anything done.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
bored. I mean, you can hear the judgments their mind is making on the walk. And what if we could notice that and come back
yeah,
with curiosity to the trees, or
yeah,
how the flowers are growing, or details in
yeah.
the buildings we haven't noticed before. There's two very different ways to be on a walk there, right? Judging and wandering into the future and the past, or really
Mhm.
being there with openness and curiosity. And
Yeah,
that's that being mind that we're really trying to capture.
yeah, yeah. That makes me want to go for a walk right now and
Me
just
too.
be present. So on that note, we'll sign
Mhm.
off for today. But do email us if you have any comments or anything that you'd like us to cover in future weeks. My email is Tori at proactive-therapy.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Well, enjoy your walk, Tori. Be open and curious, and I'll see you next
Yes.
time.
Thanks, Linda, and you too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.